There was a friend of mine who was preaching his candidating sermon. Do you know what that is? When a minister is about to get hired by a church, they preach as sort of an interview, right? And then they decide whether to hire the person. So he's in the pulpit, and it's a big moment. You're nervous if it's your candidating sermon. And he was going to preach a sermon about faith. And he thought he had a wonderful sermon prepared. And he got up in the pulpit, and with a great rush of energy, he started his first sentence, and his front cap flew out of his mouth, bounced on the floor, and went under the first pew. Now, the whole sermon was going to be about faith. But you can't really say faith without a front cap. And so, in a panic, he realized he couldn't say the word faith anymore, and he couldn't stop the sermon and go get his tooth. So on the spot, he came up with a sermon about faith without even using the word. He just started to utilize wonderful synonyms and different metaphors and symbols, and he talked about love and trust and hope. He said it became the best sermon he ever gave. Well, I'm hoping right now my front cap doesn't fly out, but I want to try to tell you why I'm a Christian without using any of the official words. Talking in a very plain way, without using all the theological stuff, just tell you why I am a Christian. So let me try. First, let me tell you that I grew up in the church, and I love the church. My dad was the pastor. My entire church family tree had been involved in churches back generations. I loved the church. I grew up in a half-cup Methodist church. Do you know what a half-cup Methodist church is? It's when they only fill the coffee cups up halfway because they know a hug is coming. Everybody's going to hug you, and the coffee would spill if you fill it up all the way. At that church on a Sunday morning, it was just hugs and warmth, and I loved it. So I never rejected Christianity, but by the time I was 20, typical 20-year-old at college, I didn't go to church anymore. And really, if you asked me when I was 20 if I was Christian, I would have said, well, I don't know, I'm spiritual. I wasn't rejecting religion. I just was worried that Christianity was something that was narrowing. That if you're part of one religion, that somehow that's to burrow down into a hole. And I was just interested in all the spiritualities of the world. I was really into Native American spirituality and Buddhism when I was in college, and a whole range of sort of New Age spiritualities and earth-based spirituality. So I wouldn't have said I was Christian, but I knew I was into spiritual things. But now it's hugely important for me to say that I'm Christian. But I want to tell you why I am without all the religious words. Let me just tell you about that fundamental impulse I have now. First, all along, I always sensed that there is something more. This was like a basic intuition in me, that there is more than can be seen, that everything we see around us in the physical universe, there's more. There's a spiritual realm. This basic intimation that there is something more isn't some fully developed notion of a biblical God. That all came later in my development as a Christian. But that basic impulse, it's still primary to me. God still, in the end, is a mystery to me. God is inscrutable. But I trust the mystery, and I know there is something more. There is a basic impulse that brought me into Christianity as well. And one of the great theorists of religion said that it's It's religion that provides a collective effervescence. Let me explain this. I've spoken about this before. Max Weber believed that the origin of religion was when the early tribes of humanity, their day was grueling and hard and filled with the mundane tasks of getting enough food and shelter, but that every once in a while the tribe would gather and get beyond the mundane and experience a collective effervescence, a type of joy of togetherness in the rituals of the tribe, and that would create a unity. That's still what I sense. I don't want to do spirituality alone. I want to gather with others and experience that joy and animation, collective effervescence, and a sense of unity. I want to feel connected to others. That's what has brought me into being a Christian, is I want that common shared faith where we can speak to one another of our hearts. Collective effervescence and unity, yet with a type of interiority. This is an essential impulse in me, that whatever religion is, it's also a going deep within. And it's an exploration of being an individual. I don't feel like I merge into some collective. I get the sizzle and joy of community. But this interiority or introspection, always seeking to know yourself more deeply, that's an essential impulse in me. Why am I a Christian? In a basic way. Also because I want to help make it a better world. That's one of the most basic impulses I have to be a Christian. I want things to be fair. I know we use the word justice a lot, or pretty heavy phrases like social justice. I just want it to be fair for everyone. I want human beings to flourish. Now, there is the case that if everything was perfectly just, there would still be human beings that don't flourish. But I want it to be fair for everyone. I want to work together to make it a better world. And so I'm trying to describe these basic impulses in me that brought me into Christianity, but in ways that aren't theological or religious. And one of those basic impulses is I want to strive to not be so self-centered. I think naturally there's a tendency in all of us to be self-centered. Have you seen that meme where it says if we were ever to discover the center of the universe, some people would be disappointed it's not them? I think all of us feel like we're the center of the universe, but religion, in some basic way, draws you out of yourself into greater concern for others, into something beyond yourself. That's the very definition of God, really. Something beyond ourselves. There is a theologian, I won't use theological language, I'm trying to talk normally. It's hard for a minister to just talk normally. We're used to using all the jargon, all the religious words. But one theologian believes that the key to religion is it moves you from being self-centered to being reality-centered, to focus on others and the way things really are, not all through your own perceptions or your own understandings. There's something about religion that gives me the joy of getting beyond myself. That's where true joy comes. I mean, we're so caught up in our own preoccupations, our own designs, our own hopes, our own anxiety. But when you forget yourself, religion helps this happen. When even for a moment you forget yourself and are amazed at God's universe or in love and trying to serve others, when you forget yourself, there is joy. I'm still trying to do this, I'm not sure I am, to just talk about these basic impulses to be Christian without all the biblical content or theological content. And there's another very basic impulse. I sense that compassion and goodness is what is most real and essential. And it is religion that says love is the essence of all things. that is perhaps the genius of Christianity, that love is not just a feeling, that love is the essence of reality. For it says, no one has ever seen God, but when we love each other, God abides in us, and God's love is perfected in us, for God is love. When religion says God is love, it's putting love at the center of all things. And so that's a fundamental aspiration in me, a hope that love is the center of all things. So, lastly, why am I a Christian? Put in a non-religious way, well, I have to talk about a person then. I won't say his name. But at the center of this, there is a person. Someone who was both so wise and sage-like, but yet also someone that was trying to create a movement for justice. There is at the center of this a person that I fell in love with. There's a person that you could love. I've tried to speak about why I am a Christian without a bunch of theology. What I hope for you is that you can name that fundamental impulse in you, that impulse towards love and meaning and hope. Hey, my front tooth didn't fall out. Amen.